Good morning. Please allow me to ask that you be seated so that we can start this great and grandiose occasion. If you would, please be seated. And if anyone has to use the restrooms, you can find them at that first entrance there to your left. Nappy hair and black complexion cannot forfeit nature's claim. Skin may differ, but affection dwells in black and white the same. If I were so tall as to reach the pole, or to grasp for the ocean at a span, I must be measured by my soul. The mind is the standard of the man. The words of the poem, The Negro's Complaint by William Cowper. I am convinced that words of that ilk served as fodder, served as fuel for the teachers and administrators here at Lakeview, who reminded us students on a daily basis that we could not use inferior facilities, inferior supplies, and entrenched racism as excuses for failure. It was iterated on a daily basis that excellence was the expected norm. As I attempt to shepherd this program, you will probably hear me speak of Lakeview in the present tense. Please do not assume that I slept during English class, and by all means, my teachers were not inept. But I speak of Lakeview in the present tense because Lakeview never was and never will be defined by bricks and mortar and blackboards. Lakeview is a majestic spirit that God Almighty himself breathed into the nostrils and the psyche of African American people here in Lexington County. And I am, again, Eugenia Washington, an immensely proud graduate of Lakeview High School, and I've been tasked with shepherding or the MC of this program, and so I would do thusly. And so one of the traits of a decent MC is to be a magician. That is, make his or herself disappear and not go back and forth to this podium, and now we'll have, and now we'll have. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna be a magician. So with that having been said, allow me to call out the order of the program. We will have the welcome and occasion by James Melvin, a 1965 Lakeview alumnus, the invocation by Elder Michael Brown, greetings by the Honorable Tim Miles, Mayor, City of West Columbia, South Carolina, the Honorable Mickey Pringle, Councilman, City of West Columbia, District 5, the Honorable Elise Parton, Mayor, City of Casey, South Carolina, the Honorable James Skip Jenkins, Mayor Pro Tem, City of Columbia, Dr. Brenda Hafner, Superintendent, Lexington School District 2, Congressman Joe Wilson from the 2nd Congressional District, and Senator Nikki Seltzer. They will do greetings, after which Mr. John Shearer, Director of Preservation is Historic Columbia, Don Dawson House, Executive Director of Wegoja Foundation, Virginia Hartness, and Edwin C. Breeden, who is with the National Registrar of Historic Places, the South Carolina Department of Archives and History. They will come before you in that order, and I will not come back until I have the great pleasure of introducing the one and only, the man of all seasons, the man of just and noble reason, the Honorable James Clyburn. Thank you.
Good morning. Every time I listen to Brother Washington, I'm just amazed at his capturing of history and his use of words, the English language. I say again, I'm James Melvin, as he said, a 1965 graduate of Lakeview High School. And I've been around the world in many places, and I tell people about my experience here at Lakeview High School. Lakeview High School, we're here to acknowledge Lakeview and the people that Lakeview touched along the way. So I remind people that I would not be who I am were it not for Lakeview High School. And I know that many of you sitting here today share those same sentiments. It's a privilege and a pleasure for me to welcome you here this morning. And I'm not going into anything elaborate. I just welcome you on behalf of all of the students that attended Lakeview. I welcome you on behalf of those faculty and administrators and people who were here who worked so diligently to touch the lives of children who were walking the halls of Lakeview High School and who would not be who they were or who they are were it not for those people who touched us along life's way. I wrote up something, but I'm going to put this away and talk to you from the heart. You see, many of you here, I know, feel the same way that I do about our dear old Lakeview. We think back of Dr. Bogan, who touched us. He touched us in many ways, and some of us some of us didn't want to be touched the way he touched us sometimes. But we knew that those people who were here at that time did what they did because they loved us. And I'll tell you a quick story. I was in my 10th grade geometry class, and one of my instructors told me, says, Melvin, if you get a chance to go to college, and that was a big if because we were dirt poor, says, if you get a chance to go to college, I want you to think about Johnson C. Smith, which is a small HBCU up in Charlotte. And mind you, I'm in my sophomore year. From my sophomore year, junior year, senior year, she was working on my behalf to arrange scholarship money for me to go to Johnson C. Smith. So those are the kinds of people that we had here at Lakeview. And so, again, I just want to welcome you because what we see here today is a monumental accomplishment that's worthy of what's happening. Lakeview will go down in history now. With what we're doing here today, Lakeview will never be forgotten. And I will say that to Reverend Dr. Jackson, because he spearheaded a lot of what we see here today. And I just thank God that God gave you the vision and gave you the resources to accomplish what we're accomplishing here. And so I welcome all of you. We're going to be brief because you all have things to do. I welcome you to this occasion here today of our being recognized here today. So again, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us here today.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I ask that we just take this time and pause to just, as we go into prayer. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this opportunity that you have allowed us to come into your presence. We thank you for this opportunity to come just celebrate and recognize this great historic moment. We ask that you continue to bless each and every one today. We ask that you bless our speaker of the hour today, the Honorable James Clyburn. We We ask also that you bless each and every dignitary and officials here. Continue to bless everyone that came out today. We ask also that you continue to bless and enrich Reverend Jackson, who is the pastor of Brooklyn, for this vision that he had, and also for Brooklyn Lakeview Empowerment Center. Continue to bless each and every worker that here today, that they will continue to just empower the community this day. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
First of all, it's an honor to be here before all of you today. And you may have noticed I have one of my children with me. If I can beg a moment of personal indulgence, it is her 14th birthday today. So if y'all would, please give a round of applause to Emma Miles. Thank y'all. She's my oldest, and she's my special baby. So thank y'all for extending that greeting to her this morning. I stand before y'all proud this morning to be the mayor of West Columbia and to be here at this school in this place. And I've got some prepared notes that my staff wrote for me, and Ms. Huffman always does a wonderful job. But I wanted to speak to you a little bit about my thoughts this morning on where we're standing. You know, at its essence, I think the central point of the American ideal is equal protection and equality for all. I think that's what it all boils down to. And those are natural God-given rights, and we recognize that, and we fought a Revolutionary War because of it. And the way we set the country up, we didn't provide that to everybody. And years later, decades later, we recognized that that wasn't right, and we fought a war over that to help convince some folks that things needed to change. And we still didn't get there, but we're continuing to work towards it. And that's where we are today. We're looking back on the past of a segregated society, and we're standing here and we're honoring that past. And I want to tell you, this place is just as hallowed and important in the progression of this country as any Revolutionary War battlefield that you'll go to, any Civil War battlefield. It may even be more important. You can go to those places and you can remember the history and the things that this country did and the sacrifices made to bring us along on that progress and that process that we're still engaged in. But when you go there, those battles are over, right? Those days are done. When you're standing here, we're remembering the past, but we're also so excited for the future that this place offers each and every one of us and the hope for a better community. And that's through the hard work of Dr. Richburg Cotton, Reverend Jackson, and all those folks who are working with them to help improve our entire community in this area through the innovative things that they're offering right here. So I want to tell you, thank you all for joining us. Let's remember the history. Let's be proud of everything that happened here, the progress we've made, and let's be excited for what this place still offers us today and the things that we can build together going forward. Thank you all.
Good morning. I am Mickey Pringle, the councilman for District 5 here that served this area. And before I get started, I want to say thank you to Dr. Cotton for all the work that she puts in to make this place what happens. This is a unique place, you know, and it always has been. I didn't grow up in the area, but my wife actually attended school here for about 3 or 4 years before desegregation. This place has been a very important part of Lexington County, not only this community, but I am told that people came as far as from Calhoun County to attend school here at Lakeview back in the days. It wasn't always Lakeview. At one point, the school actually started in 1925, okay? And at one point, it was named New Brooklyn for the colored people. And then it moved to this building in 1939, and it became Lakeview because of the proximity to the horseshoe pond. Over here you can see the horseshoe pond, so they named it Lakeview because of that. But it has been around for a long time, and it has offered services. You got some outstanding folk that came out of this school. I mean, of all professions, and they make the community, and the alumni association now is still active under Mr. Hutto. I wasn't a member of Lakeview, but they actually talked me into joining the alumni association. So I actually joined the alumni association. So, but like again, I'm appreciative for what the things that they do in this community, and what the things that's going on now. I mean, you don't know all of the things that happens in this building, and we talk about the history of Lakeview, but think about the present, the senior citizen program, all of the after-school programs, the summer camps for kids, the athletic programs, which that's how I got to know Lakeview, because Peter Prelo and Mr. Sultan and them, they always talked about the football teams and the basketball teams, and I actually had the honor of coaching, being assistant coach at AC Flora for one of the stars that played here, Mr. Carvan Williams. I was actually his assistant coach at AC Flora High School for a couple of years. But all of the things that's still going on here, we're very appreciative for Dr. Cotton and Reverend Jackson and the whole staff here at the BLEC for all of the programs and things that they continue to offer for kids. Just revitalized the football field, and I think, 2 years ago, they had about 4 of the AAU teams won state championships. We got cheerleading for girls. Carolina Children's Theater is here now. They're going to be offering theater courses for kids. So there's a lot of things still going on here at the Empowerment Center. So again, thank you for all that y'all do for the community, and we appreciate it.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting me here today to help give greetings to a place that was and is so important in the lives of so many Casey residents. Yesterday, I got asked what I was doing today, and I lit up when I was talking about the opportunity to come to this dedication ceremony. And I asked this young person who's, I don't know, in his 20s or 30s, I said, oh, you know the Lakeview School. And this young person, who's not from here, but he works in education, was not aware of the Lakeview School. And I had the opportunity to tell him about my friend and our 20-plus year council member and our Mayor Pro Tem, Skip Jenkins, who went to school here. And to talk about all the difference that has been made. And his eyes lit up in thinking about things that so often in this day and age we think is so long ago. But having our Mayor Pro Tem, Skip Jenkins, as an alumni and as a prominent leader in our community is very important to show to people that this is not history. This is today. This is about our life. This is about how we live together. And this celebration, all that Dr. Cotton and Reverend Jackson have done to invest back into this school and make it again a prominent part of our community is so important, because as far as we have come from this being a segregated school to having our Mayor Pro Tem lead our city, we have so far to go. When we have people in our community who work in education who don't know about this school, who don't have that feeling that this was not that long ago, and that we have an opportunity to do so much more work together to make a difference for all of us together. Thank you for all the hard work and dedication that it got to this day today. Thank you.
Good morning. So much good stuff has been said here this morning. It's kind of like hard to bring it all to life. But going back to what my brother Melvin said, yeah, I was one of the participants in getting extra activity with Prof. Bogan. But I really want to welcome you all to my school, Lakeview. It was the only school in this area that was for African Americans. And it was stated earlier that people came from Clabtown, as far as counselor, all those schools, they had to be bused in to get an education here. And we got an education. There's a lot of us in our lives moved on to greater and better things, but we was taught here, and we was made to learn. So, I mean, you didn't have no choice but to learn. I mean, you know, so, and they would call home and tell your parents what they did, and you got it again, you know, so it was just, I mean, it's life is, now you can pass this on to your kids, to your grandkids, because I have had to explain a lot of times what was Lakeview and where are Lakeview. So now with this marker and this recognition, it's history, and we should be proud of it. And Reverend Jackson and Ms. Cotton, they're doing a fantastic job. You walk into school, I thought when I went to school here, this was the biggest, largest building that I ever been in, you know? And there's a lot of things that I can recall going up to here. And where you get to, the first door you get to up to here is Prof. Bogan office. I mean, that's etched in my brain. I mean, you know, so it's, I thank all my instructors, and we had some good ones. Some has passed on, some of my classmates. Mr. Melvin, that's my classmate. I graduated in '65 and stuff. We was in the same class and stuff. But I enjoy y'all being here and seeing where we all came from. You know, so enjoy your day, and I hope, like it's etched in my brain, it can get etched in someone else's brain as to how we got an education and how we went through to get one. Thank you very much.
Good morning. It is truly an honor to be here today. As many of you know, I was newly hired this past June and began the role of superintendent in Lexington II in July of 2022. I am a social studies teacher by trade and heart, and developing an understanding of the communities I live and work in is a real passion of mine. When Dr. Richburg Cotton invited me to speak today, it gave me an opportunity to research even more deeply into the history of Lakeview. Given that it's commencement season, I particularly enjoyed my reading about the graduates. The class of 1947, there were 33 graduates led by a dedicated principal in the Reverend Miles D. Bogan that we continue to hear about. The 1947 class colors were blue and pink, and their class flower was a carnation. In the 1958-59 school year, there appeared to be 30 graduates, with 9 headed to college, 1 trade school, and 20 into a vocational field. I loved looking at the faces of these proud graduates, ready to move on to their next chapters in life. In fact, among the many classes that came through, today's Lakeview alumni include business executives, scientists, military officers, clergy members, lawyers, physicians, educators, and others. Our West Columbia area community has changed over the years. There has been an influx of new residents, neighborhoods, and businesses, and we have built new school facilities to meet the needs of this growing community. What has not changed, as evidenced in my research and my conversations with the people who live, work, and worship here, is the tireless dedication of the members of the Lakeview Alumni Association who continue the Lakeview legacy of determination, resiliency, and the pursuit of excellence of all endeavors. Lakeview School has created a remarkable legacy in the Lexington District 2 community, particularly for their outstanding administrative leaders and teaching staff and the special Lakeview graduates who later worked in Lexington District 2 and continue to work with our area youth. As the relatively new superintendent here, I appreciate the relationship that Lexington II and Lakeview share. Together, our goal is to educate, encourage, and empower Lexington II students and all area youth with the opportunities to help them to be successful. Among some of the recent community outreach, a panel of Lakeview alumni spoke earlier this year at Brooklyn Casey High School. Some of our Busby students were invited to volunteer at the Brooklyn Lakeview Empowerment Center kitchen. And the Empowerment Center recently launched the 21st Century COLA after-school program and summer camp targeted to Northside Middle School and East Point Academy students. I would like to thank everyone from the Brooklyn Lakeview Empowerment Center and the Lakeview Alumni Association for their continued support of our school district. I could not be more proud to be a part of this dedication ceremony today, and I cannot imagine a more fitting recognition than this designation of the National Register of Historic Places for the site of the Lakeview School. As said in part of the Lakeview School song, Lakeview, let thy praises ring. Thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen, friends of Lakeview, it is so humbling to have the privilege and opportunity to serve you in Congress. And just how exciting, too, to see so many graduates of 1965. What a great year that was. So so it's really particularly humbling. And then we're seeing the shared heritage here today with the council members and to be greeted by Pastor Jackson and Robin and Charles Jr. The vision of the pastor for the facilities here to serve the community is just world class. And it's also world class that I have the privilege and opportunity of serving with Congressman Jim Clyburn. And that is that we work together on issues relative to Fort Jackson. We work together on Savannah Riverside and Lakeview in between. And so it's just humbling to be here and just look forward to this shared heritage that we can look to that's so positive for our communities that are here today with Mayor Parton. Thank you so much. And Miles, gosh, this is just great to see so many people involved. And with this, I have the great privilege of the next person is the Dean of the South Carolina Senate, Nikki Setzler.
Thank you very much. I'm Nikki Setzler, and I'm honored and privileged to serve you in the South Carolina Senate. I am a lifelong resident of Casey, West Columbia, so I do understand and know about Lakeview. I grew up knowing about Lakeview, and I've been a supporter of Lakeview my entire life. Each of us is who we are by the grace of God, but don't let us forget today to give thanks to God for this facility, for the lives it's touched, for the people who are here today that are continuing the legacy of Lakeview. To Dr. Cotton, to my dear friend Charles Jackson of 50 years, we say thank you to all of you who do work at the Empowerment Center. It's been my privilege and honor to be able to get $300,000 in state funds to help with the Empowerment Center and with the football field. And it was one of my, thank you. I have 4 daughters. I have daughters who attended this school. So again, my family ties to this school and this community run throughout my entire life. I have 2 daughters. My wife was a teacher, and I have 2 daughters who are teachers now. So education is important. We have a rich history, and we have the history of Lakeview. But today our view and vision of Lakeview is towards the future and to what we can do in changing lives of young people and children. That's what it's about. And I want to thank you for your connection to Lakeview, for the Empowerment Center, for the work you do each and every day for the children of this community, for the students, and in the fact that through God's grace, we are changing lives every single day in this community through this school. It's past, and its future, and we're thankful. And Representative Clyburn, thank you for all you do for us in Washington, and also Congressman Wilson. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to share in this celebration. My name is John Scheer, and I have the pleasure of representing my colleagues with Historic Columbia in congratulating the dedicated alumni and supporters of Lakeview High School and the Brooklyn Lakeview Empowerment Center on yet another milestone achievement in having this historic site in the generation of lives that shaped it be acknowledged through its listing in the National Register of Historic Places. For those of you who are not familiar with Historic Columbia, we are a private nonprofit organization founded in 1961, a time during which some of you in the audience attended Lakeview. Since then, we have grown beyond our initial mission, and today we are the steward of 6 historic properties owned by the City of Columbia and Richland County. While maintaining these properties as models of preservation, we use them for venues for education, reflection, growth, and recreation. But beyond their walls, Historic Columbia strives to work with others to preserve places and share complex stories from the past that connect us in the present and inspire our future. Those efforts take us to countless communities and lead to rewarding partnerships. None has been more exciting nor fulfilling as the partnership forged between that which my colleagues, particularly Robin Waits, our Executive Director, and Kat Allen, our Director of Outreach Engagement, and I have had the pleasure of growing since 2018. At that time, we were contacted by Dr. Cotton and members of the Lakeview alumni to explore the founding of a museum within the BLEC. I am thankful to have participated in the process of nominating this transformative site to the National Register of Historic Places. It was a journey made successful, interesting, and meaningful through my interactions with many of you here, including Mr. Sutton, Dr. Cotton, Mr. Prelo, and of course, with assistance from the State Historic Preservation Office staff. Today is a great day indeed, and it's one in which I think we will all share a Tiger spirit.
Good morning, everybody. Congressman Clyburn, Pastor Jackson, Lakeview alumni. I had the pleasure of meeting a lot of Lakeview alumni this morning, including one of your best athletes, Bobby Keller. Y'all know him? Okay. I met a lot of people today. I thank you for inviting the Wegoja Foundation to deliver congratulations and brief remarks on the acquisition and unveiling of your new National Register marker. The marker symbolizes hard work and commitment, in my opinion, to preserving your story, your legacy, your influence, and your contributions to the West Columbia community, the lives of your children, and the future of the state of South Carolina. Wegoja is a nonprofit organization that supports the identification, preservation, and promotion of largely undertold, yet still significant African American history in South Carolina, and we applaud your accomplishment. You make us look really good. When we joined you 2 or 3 years ago, I think it was, for the unveiling of your official state historical marker out front, we promised to add Lakeview School to the Green Book of South Carolina. And if you were to search the website today, you will see Lakeview School prominently displayed among all other historic African American schools in our database. We will add the update of your new national designation before the summer ends. And if by the end of July you don't see it updated, call me and tell me to get on it, and I will do it. Also, in the next 12 to 18 months, Wegoja will build another master database, this time for property owners. and for preservationists, and for anyone who's interested in finding all the tools they need to meet their preservation goals, like Pastor Jackson, Brooklyn Lakeview Empowerment Center, and Dr. Richburg Cotton have done for this facility. It'll be called a preservation toolkit, and it will be a one-stop shop for the complex process of preservation, providing, among many things, how to acquire a state historical marker, how to get listed on the National Register, a database of professionals like grant writers and project leaders. It will also include a forum, a live forum, so that successful people like Lakeview Empowerment Center can talk with emerging organizations to help them become equally successful. Our goal is to preserve as much African American history in South Carolina as possible. From the moments the Wolof and the Yoruba arrived at Sullivan's Island and Gadsden's Wharf in Charleston, to the moments these enslaved West Africans showed colonists how to grow rice, to the stellar leadership of our civil rights icons and change makers like Congressman Clyburn, to rising stars like Pastor Jackson and Cindy Richburg Cotton, until all of our stories are told with as much commitment and pride as Lakeview School's story is told today, WeGoJa's work will not be complete. Thank you for being a shining example for us. Thank you for getting your National Historical Marker. Congratulations. Your story, I hope, will be told for many generations to come. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Virginia Harness. I'm the architectural historian at the State Historic Preservation Office, which is part of the South Carolina Department of Archives and History. And I co-coordinate the National Register program in South Carolina with my colleague, Edwin Breeden, who's back there. So as National Register coordinators for South Carolina, Edwin and I helped shepherd the nomination for Lakeview School through the listing process. And we're very glad to be here today to celebrate the culmination of that effort with all of you. The National Register of Historic Places is the official list of the nation's places worthy of preservation. It's a federal program established in 1966 by the National Historic Preservation Act and falls under the purview of the National Park Service. It's a common misconception that once a building is listed in the National Register, it is forever protected from significant changes or demolition. But in fact, the designation is largely honorific and its protections are very limited. What the program does do is it encourages preservation by providing formal recognition of a property's historic significance and opening the door to financial incentives such as grants and tax credits. There are over 1,500 National Register listings in the state of South Carolina, with an average of 15 to 20 new listings added each year. Approximately 219 of those, including Lakeview School, are specifically listed for associations with African American history. Resources nominated for associations with the Black community are historically underrepresented in the National Register, but there are active efforts to try and address those historic inequalities, and we have seen an increase in listings for associations with Black history. Indeed, over the last 5 years, 10% of new National Register listings in South Carolina were for African American schools, including Lakeview. Getting places listed in the National Register is no mean feat. As any of you who are involved will know. The process of listing Lakeview School began back in the fall of 2020, when a formal inquiry was made about its National Register eligibility to our office. Once a draft nomination was prepared, it went through review and revisions with us at the SHPO, and then went to the State Review Board in November of last year, and finally to the National Park Service, where it was approved on January 31st, 2023. So it has been a long journey to this moment, and the listing of Lakeview School represents the hard work of many hands. Ultimately, it is people who give meaning to history. When the nomination for Lakeview School was presented at Review Board last year, a group of alumni attended the meeting and shared with us their memories and deep appreciation for this place. It was evident then how much Lakeview School meant to them and to the local community, and why it was important that this part of our state's history be formally recognized. So to all who were involved in nominating Lakeview School, to the alumni, and to the community, we offer you our sincere congratulations on its successful listing in the National Register of Historic Places. Thank you.
I have before me a brief resume, or as when I was trying to teach my daughter the English language, and to sound things out, and she would call it a resume. So, so I have a brief written resume about Congressman Clyburn, but let me just quickly share a tangible resume about Congressman Clyburn. There used to be a Drew Park, which consisted, a segregated Drew Park, which consisted of a swimming pool, a small building, a baseball field. But now there is a Drew Wellness Center, a multi-million-dollar facility. Were it not for one James E. Clyburn, there would not be a Drew Wellness Center. And health is important because health is wealth. And I go there 3 days a week, and in my futile and hopeless attempt to become good looking like Dr. Rudy Wise, one of the things that always capture my attention, Congressman Clyburn, are the elderly who come in wheelchairs. And they go from the wheelchairs to the swimming pools, and instructors helping them with the weights as they attempt to recapture a measure of health, and we know that health is wealth. So thank you for that tangible resume. And it's amazing that when Dr. Cotton told me I would then be introducing you, I live out in the sticks and in the woods, and I was driving, and a limb had partially fallen. A limb had partially fallen off of a tree, and it was hanging down in the road, and it obstructed the cars that were northbound. And so what happened is cars were driving into the opposite lane to get around that. And I thought about Congressman Clyburn in one of his political ads, in which he recounted the story of, as a young lad, being with his father and a tree obstructing the roadway, and his father getting out of the car and removing that tree that obstructed the roadway. And he shared with the young lad that even though that was not my job, it was my moral responsibility. And now the resume of Congressman Jim Clyburn. James E. Clyburn is the Assistant Democratic Leader in the United States House of Representatives and Chairman of the Democratic Faith Working Group. He previously served in the post from 2011 to 2018 and served as Majority Whip from 2007 to 2010 and 2019 and 2020, making him the first African American to serve multiple terms as Majority Whip. A native son of South Carolina, Clyburn has represented the state's 6th congressional district since 1993. Congressman Clyburn's humble beginnings in Sumter, South Carolina, as the eldest son of an activist, fundamentalist minister, and an independent, civic-minded beautician grounded him securely in family, faith, and public service. A 1961 graduate of South Carolina State University, he began his professional career as a public school teacher in Charleston, South Carolina. He later served as an employment counselor and director of 2 youth and community development programs. In 1971, he joined the staff of Governor James C. West, becoming the first African-American advisor to a South Carolina governor. In 1974, Governor West appointed him South Carolina Human Affairs Commissioner, where he served until 1992, when he retired from state government to run for Congress. When he came to Congress in 1993, Congressman Clyburn was elected co-president of the freshman class. He was subsequently elected chairman of the Congressional Black Caucus, vice president and chair of the House Democratic Caucus. From 2011 to 2018, he served as assistant Democratic leader. In addition to serving as whip, Congressman Clyburn chairs the House Select Subcommittee on the virus crisis. Sorry, it's my silly moment. The recipient of 36 honorary degrees, Congressman Clyburn, numerous awards include the following: the Lyndon Baines Johnson Liberty and Justice for All Award in 2015, the Harry S. Truman Foundation's Good Neighbor Award in 2021, and the NAACP's highest honor, the Spingard Medal, in 2020. His endorsement of Joe Biden for president in 2020 is credited with boosting him to an overwhelming victory in the South Carolina and subsequent primaries and setting Mr. Biden on the path to the presidency. Congressman Clyburn and his late wife, Emily English Clyburn, met as college students protesters in an Orangeburg, South Carolina jail in 1960. That encounter led to a 58-year marriage, and they became parents of three daughters, grandparents of 4 grandchildren, and great-grandparents to 1 great-grandchild. The man who needs no induction, the one and only, Congressman James E. Clyburn.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much, Dr. Cotton. Thank you so much for your invitation to be here today, to be a part of this great effort. Dr. Jackson, thank you so much for your visionary leadership of this effort, as well as Brookland Baptist Church. She had to take me aside one time to teach me how to pronounce that. I would always make the land a little silent, and that didn't go with him too well. Thank you so much. To my colleague, Joe Wilson, thank you so much for being here. Nikki, good to see you, and thank you so much for your leadership as well. I want to say a couple of things here. I'm going to try not to be as long as they resume that you just heard. My wife would be very upset if she had to sit through that. She always told me, as you will see here today, several years ago, she called me aside and told me that she wanted me to stop reading speeches. She says, you do not connect well when you read. I want you to study the issues before you arrive at the ceremony or program and speak extemporaneously. So I don't know how much study I've done, Dr. Cotton, but I am here to speak extemporaneously, and I'm going to do that calling upon a little gaffe that was made here when I was referred to as Reverend. Now, you know, in order to really do effective things, Mr. Mayor, extemporaneously, and Madam Mayor, I tend to try to get at programs early enough to listen to, especially in church, to the songs that are being sung. And I want to listen to the prayers and listen to what scripture is being read, and see, can I gather from those songs and those scriptures something to really talk about. And that's what I did here today. So, no, I'm not a reverend, but I grew up in the parsonage. My father was a fundamentalist minister, and I still read the Bible regularly. And I was growing up, my dad had 2 rules, and we had a lot of rules, but there were 2 of them were every morning at breakfast, before you pick up the fork, you had to say a Bible verse. He never told us to read the Bible. He just told us we had to do a Bible verse every morning, and you could not say the same one twice. And on the day that he set down the rule, he took Jesus Wept off the table. Very true. But the second rule was every evening before retiring to bed, we had to share with him or my mother a current event. We did not have television. But the Sumter Daily Item, that's now a morning paper, at that time was an evening paper. And every evening, the Sumter Daily Item was delivered in the afternoon, really, to our home. And after homework every night, we had to share with him a current event. So I grew up, Madam Superintendent, well prepared to become the social studies teacher that I became. I started my professional career as a social studies teacher in the Charleston County Public Schools. Graduated to teaching history, but that's the way I started. But in that home, reading those Bible verses, one of the verses that I became very fond of, I think, is the foundation for this empowerment center here today, Brother Melvin. Hebrews, the 11th chapter, first verse. Faith, the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things unseen. This empowerment center may not have been seen by a lot of people. In fact, I can pretty much guarantee that everybody did not have the vision that Dr. Jackson had. In fact, when he first called me about this empowerment center, I'm not too sure that I responded the way he wanted me to. And I remember the day I was speaking to a group of law enforcement officers from all over the country down in Charleston. And I was approached by a gentleman in the private sector. I do not recall his name. I have no idea what his business was, but I know you do because of that check he wrote. But that's right. He came to me after my speech, and he expressed a certain identification and some emotions that he felt as a result of what I spoke about. And he asked if I knew of entities that he could be involved with. And I had just talked. I just talked with Charles Jackson, and I was able to mention his vision of this. I don't know if he remembers that. If that gentleman were to walk up here now, I would not know him. I don't have an idea what the company was, but I saw you sometime later, and you told me you got the check. And so I feel a certain identity with this. But what I did know on that particular day, that I've known about Lakeview for a long time. Now, I had no idea, in fact, 68, 65, come on, man, y'all make me feel real old. Because when I first came to Columbia, Emily and I came here in 1961. She was the first librarian, in fact, set up the library at what was then Fairwall Middle School. It's now W.D. Sanders Middle School. Emily England Clyburn was its first librarian. And her sister was teaching elementary school over at Fairwall Elementary School. And we, of course, moved to Charleston in '62, but it started a relationship here. We came back to Columbia in 1965. And while at South Carolina State, I had developed a relationship with a young man, a young student, named Harold White, that we call Sweet Daddy. And when I came back, Sweet Daddy had graduated from college. We graduated the same year. I went to Charleston, he went to Beaufort. and y'all brought him back here to coach at Lakeview. And I never told you that. And I came to see how good a coach Sweet Daddy was several times on the football field. So I had this relationship with this school. And that's why it's important to build relationships. So I had an emotional attachment when I was asked, this is a little bit outside of my district, when I was asked for assistance with this effort, I was able to have a certain emotional attachment. That's why it was important to me, Madam Superintendent, that you would do the kind of research you did about this school. Because it's important for us in this day and time not to forget that. Yes. I don't. Yes. My first high school, though I didn't graduate from Lincoln, I graduated from Mather Academy over in Camden. My first high school was Lincoln High School in Sumter. I have never forgotten my history teacher, Reverend Dupree. Now, I don't remember him like you all remember the pastor of this school. Though I was touched by him too. But it was at his church, at Trinity Baptist Church, where he pastored. So I had a different touch from him that you all had. But I did know him and respected him a great deal. But several years ago, alumni from Lincoln, Jim Felder being one of them, who was my classmate, he approached me one day and he said, you know, we really want to preserve Lincoln High School. Because Lincoln High School, he closed down, as we know, all of these schools were closed. And there was a church, a Methodist church there on Liberty Street, bought the property. And then they had no real use for the property. They boarded it up. And so the alumni approached them at the church and asked them to let them have the property. The church agreed to sell them the property, which was good. And they accepted the offer, except they had no money. You can't buy a school with no money. So Jim Felder came to me and says, well, that's where you come in. Well, I'm pleased to say to you that the Lincoln High School alumni own the property now. And many of you may have read 3 days ago, they got $750,000 to refurbish that property and bring it up to about where you have got it here. We're going to have another $750,000 to do what you all have done. But my point I'm making here today is, look, we know the history of this country. I used to teach the Revolutionary War. I know what the Revolutionary War is all about. I know how it all got started. And those of you who know the history of the Revolutionary War, you will know that the first life lost in that war was a black guy, Crispus Attucks. Was the first one to die in the Revolutionary War. I used to teach the Civil War. I know the Civil War. I'm studying it right now. I'm writing my third book. And I promise to get my first draft to the publishers by the end of this month. I'm going to be rushing from here today to try to keep that promise. And what I'm writing about this time is before I was first. You've heard all this and first that. There were 8. There were 8 African Americans to serve in Congress from South Carolina before me. And I'm writing about them, the trials and tribulations they had to bring that forward. We know this history, and we should not run away from that history. We should embrace that history because it tells us the resiliency of a great country and how we can continue our pursuit of a more perfect union. That's what it's all about. So these museums, in 2 weeks from today, we'll be opening the International African American Museum in Charleston. Faith, 23 years ago, the mayor of Charleston, Gerard, came to me and said, we want to have an International African American Museum here. And I told him I thought that was a good idea. He said, I want you to chair it. And I told him, I need to talk to Emily, which I did. And we took off to chair that. We had all kinds of opposition that you can imagine. But for 23 years, we toiled. And over that 23-year period, we raised $100 million. And we're going to open that museum in 2 weeks. Now it's already open. We're going to have a ceremony. I just want to tell you something about that, and this is what I envision for this place. When someone walks in here, they ought to be able to go to a virtual desk and pull up the class of 1929, or you said it started in 25. Hopefully you had everybody pass. And you had a graduation in 29. But be able to plug in those classes and be able to get in touch with grandparents and great-grandparents and what was going on here, so as they can see what foundations were made for them. The group I had at the museum 2 weeks ago told me that I had 200 people there. They went into that museum, and they went to all the virtual desks. And their report to me in Washington this past week was they had been to almost every place in the Smithsonian. They had never seen anything quite as good as that. Right here in South Carolina. You can do the same here at Lakeview. We have got to sit down and get serious about preserving our history and what that can do for us. All this foolishness you hearing today about critical race theory, that's a bunch of junk. And I'm in polite company. We are talking about facts here. That's what we're talking about. When I was growing up over in Sumter, I learned that the most important and maybe still famous inventor of our times in this country was Thomas Edison. He invented the light bulb, and that's true. But what we were never taught was that though he invented the light bulb, he couldn't get it to work. We were never taught that. But that's what's true. He could not get the light bulb to work. And while he was working in his little facility up there in New Jersey, somebody came along and said, Mr. Edison, there's a man up there in Massachusetts, a man who has come up with something called a ligament. A man named Lewis Latimer. I believe, Mr. Ellison, if you go over and sit down with Mr. Latimer, he might help you get this light bulb to work. This is a true story. Edison did that. He stepped outside of his comfort zone. He had to be very comfortable working around people who looked just like him up there in New Jersey. All white people. That's fine. He stepped outside of that. Went up to Boston, Massachusetts. Sat down with Lewis Latimer, the son of former slaves. His parents had escaped from slavery and living in Boston, Massachusetts. But he invented that ligament. And Thomas Edison took Lewis Latimer's ligament, put it in his light bulb, and that's how the light bulb worked. That's what it's all about. That's what these museums are all about, so that people can understand that all of us, I know all about Gadsden Wharf. I don't know if they've told you or not, but this museum is being built on the exact site of Gadsden Wharf. Because when we did the research, we were already planning to build a museum someplace else. And we did the research and we found out what had happened. Oh, no, we can't build it there. So we got the city to go back to the restaurateur that was getting ready to build a restaurant. They said, no, you can't build a restaurant here. If you want a restaurant, you're going to have to put it inside this museum. Because we're going to build a museum here. And that's what we did. And so I know the history of Gadsden Wharf and all the other wharfs along the Charleston Harbor. That history should be told. Everybody should know it. And I'll close with this, because I really would like to see, and will be a part of, be pleased to work with you, Joe. I know this is your district. But I would like to see people like Harold White honored in this building. Bogan, I mean, maybe bring his belt and everything else. Get his office, put the right memorabilia in there, so that people can see what that was all like and what we've come from. When I speak next Saturday after next, at the opening of the museum, we're going to have the banquet Friday night. Then we'll have a big program on Saturday. I'm going to be talking about two people. I don't know exactly what I'm going to say about them, but I know who I'm going to talk about. One was a man named Scipio Ram, and the other is a man named Elijah Cummings. Elijah Cummings, who passed away and was funeralized on the day that we broke ground on that museum. I'm going to speak about him because his great-great-grandfather was Scipio Ram, who was a slave in Clarendon County. And he went on to be the first African-American to ever lay in state at our United States Capitol. To be the first African-American to have a room. A lot of people don't know this. Named for him in our Capitol. I finally got one named for Joseph Rainey, but it was after Elijah Cummings. So the story can be told of how Scipio Ram, working as a slave in Clarendon County, how his great-great-grandson became a chair of a committee in the United States Congress. And when he passed away, have his body lie in state. That shows what the movement in this country is all about. How we have made progress. And I want to thank those who worked on this designation so that we can get this marker. We are short of markers in South Carolina. We got to get these kinds of things done all over the state. So these people who walk down the street, the children who play on these grounds, can look up there and see, and they see a name and can be able to identify with that name. That's what will make them know who, not just they are, but what they can be. Thank you.
Pastor Clyburn, on behalf of the gathered throng, I want to thank you for those awe-inspiring words, Pastor Reverend Clyburn, and I'm now going to sing an old Negro spiritual as some of my deacons pass the collection plates. Not. We're now going to have the dedication of the marker by Peter Sylvester Pralo, also known as Pete, class of '68, and a young man who I love, and I just can't help myself because his life is dedicated to the uplifting of those people who are considered the least, the lost, and the left out, the poor and the powerless, the disenchanted, disadvantaged, and the disenfranchised. And I can't help myself. I love this guy, Peter Sylvester Pralo.
Thank you, brother. Gene, thank you very much for those kind words. I would like to say good morning to everyone. This is truly a special day for me. I grew up within 500 feet of this school yard on Holland Street. I attended Lakeview from first grade through 12th grade. A lot of remarks I prepared to read some history today, but I've heard a lot of comments, and I'm not a public speaker, but I've heard a lot of good things from my brother Jenkins, brother Melvin have shared a lot of the things that I want to share about the history of Lakeview. And it's a lot that's been shared with you. And I know it's a lot, I can pretty much throw this away, but again, I don't want to regurgitate a lot what has been said already, but I wanted to share some things thoughts about the school and what it meant to me as an individual and what at present is being served for this community. I was asked by Benny Sultan about a year ago to come join the board here and be a part of this Brooklyn Lakeview Empowerment Center. But I'd like to go back and share a few things about what brought me here to this point. In 1960, the school district closed this school here and it became Northside Middle School. In 2008, Reverend Jackson and Brooklyn Church family purchased this property as he made for the school. And I'd like to share a little bit about, in spite of all the limited resources that we had, the school is being preserved and it's going on to serve the community in a lot of other efforts. But again, Benny told me when I joined the board, we're only going to meet 4 times a year. four times a year. But I've served in a lot of capacities in government. I worked with Bank of America for about 35 years. I worked in the military for 38 years. I've served in a lot of different capacities, but Benny brought me over here, but this is the most gratifying thing that I can say about what Lakeview means to me now and what it means to this community and what it meant to the community and everything. But I would like to say a lot that Dr. Cotton, the leadership of this Brooklyn Lakeview Empowerment Center is going beyond the scope of what you can imagine. I look at what Congressman Clyburn just shared about the museum. Dr. Cotton and the staff here has done a lot of work. And I'm over here about 3 days a week. Benny, Rudy, and I'll be over here working diligently, but this is more gratifying to me personally as an individual to see what the school has meant to all of us and what it continues to be to serve this community. You spoke about the museum in Charleston. Dr. Cotton we've got a design of the same digital format for the school. We need $850,000 to $1 million to build that museum in here for the Lakeview legacy. So we asking for solicitation that someone will come forward with some funding to help do that, along with Wilson, you're here. We need some funding to assist with that to preserve history, History means a lot to us and it continues, but the legacy will continue to live on here at Lakeview, and I'm just overwhelmed with the leadership of Dr. Cotton of the school. And I would like to give credit to her with all what she's doing, what is doing. The Lakeview legacy is living on through what is going on here. And the impact of this community that is being felt. We're serving over 22,000 people last year. So that's a tremendous accomplishment. There are many programs that are in the center here. Diabetic intervention program, DIP program. We've got the youth football, AAU, basketball and football, that after school program that children are benefiting from They got a tutorial program to help them after school, the feeding program for the community. There's so many resources that are being brought in here under the leadership of Dr. Cotton, and I'm just overwhelmed that it's gratifying to be a part of this, to see that the legacy and all the work that's being put forth in this school, it will continue to live on and on. Lakeview will continue to be a legacy. I left all of the history that I wanted to share, but I just thank you all for being a part of this dedication there, and I'd like to, it's a testament and an honor to thank everyone that joined us today for the dedication of the Lakeview School to the National Register of Historic Places. It's just an honor to be here, and I turn that back to the Master of Ceremony to proceed forward with the rest of the program. Thank you all.
We're now going to engage in the historic marker unveiling, and the marker is over here. And so let me just say in advance, for those of us who will not be a part of the unveiling, when we go over as spectators and supporters, after that has been done, if you would, please return to your seats. And the historic marker unveiling will be conducted by the visionary, Reverend Dr. Charles B. Jackson Sr., the senior pastor of Brooklyn Baptist Church, Dr. Rudolph Rudy Wise, the legendary, incomparable oncologist, who had the audacity to retire at less than 70 years old. How dare he? But a great oncologist, my friend and confidant. Dr. Cindy Cotton, we were talking about her the other day, how wonderful and great she is, and I was telling someone she can't help herself. It's in her bones, it's in her DNA, her family. She's part of the Richburg family, who were plaintiffs in the famous Briggs versus Elliott lawsuit. A wonderful person who, if you were to approach her, if you did not know that she was Dr. Cindy Cotton, you would not get that from her. She would just tell you, I'm Cindy Richburg Cotton. A wonderful, wonderful person whose ability as executive director is unparalleled. Isaac Elliott from the class of 1967. Is Isaac here? The hard-running halfback, fullback from the Lakeview Tigers, Mr. William Hutto, who I always felt that whomever were in the room, he was always the smartest guy or the smartest person in the room. And he is the head, the helm, the steer of the Greater Lakeview Alumni Association, and the Honorable James E. Clyburn, United States House of Representatives. They will now partake of the unveiling of the marker. And again, we can go over there after the unveiling is done. If you would, please return to your seat. And it's on.